Okay, in this video I want to talk about the basics of Grasshopper. So in the Rhino we type Grasshopper and it runs. Okay, here we have the canvas of Grasshopper, so you can work in this place and see the results in Rhino. So I just want to talk how Grasshopper is built, the building blocks of Grasshopper. First of all, you have these menus up here that I have just clicked on here and changed it to display as icons. So mainly you will see these texts up here, but if you change it to display as icons, you will see the icons. I just wanted to do it like the icon things because it will just shrink this toolbar and work easily. Okay, we have these tabs here that you can select the tabs and select a tool here that you can click it here and click on the canvas, or maybe you just open the tab and have more tools. And mainly we go for the tools in two methods. One is the typical one that you just search for the tools, bring them up, activate them and feed them, and another one is just to search for them, just like double clicking on the canvas and typing the tool you want. So Grasshopper will give you some suggestions and you can click it on the canvas. You can also find where the tool is just by holding Ctrl Alt and see the right bubble information thing, and when you click on the tool it would show you where it is, so you can easily find where the tool is by having Ctrl Alt down and clicking on the tool. Okay, I just categorize these tools into three different types. Mainly when you click on a tool you have these things, that is the import and the export things. So you just import something, this tool does something in this tool does it for you and it exports the things you want, or maybe you don't want. Anyway, you can just use one or the double or others. Anyway, most of the tools in Grasshopper is just like this. They have some inputs or import and some exports or outputs. So I'll just show you here that we have some tools, imports and exports, and some are just exports or outputs. They just produce things. You can get this out. It's just something like deleting the inputs and having into the way of iconic things, change the number, for instance. Okay, some tools just gets the export and don't give outputs, so I just go for example to here. This tool, for example, just shows the vectors, so it doesn't give anything out and stop here, so it's a dead end. What you will see here is some tools like the Galapagos is also this type. It gets inputs but you have to double click to open the tool and do additional things. There are other tools that are special, some like the things you can find in utility, like the jump, that you can jump from somewhere to another place, or you can just type whatever you want. and change the font and the size. So it will help you to work in the canvas well. You can also draw things here, you know, just to explain what happens. For example, you want to say this goes to that, and you want to show it or save the file, so when you open you can understand what's happened. Anyway, you can click on this and send it to Rhino. Oh, come on, delete that. And in the Rhino you can just zoom, and in the place you can draw a rough approximation of that. Okay, I just draw this thing, go for the triangle, and you can just import it instead of this thing by loading it from Rhino. Okay, so it's just better. Anyway, these are other tools. You can also point out that any tool that you put in the canvas, for example, I just choose one tab for good luck, select this, has these inputs. So I just put my mouse on the input place. You can see a hexagon with an icon is in the middle. So this is the icon for points, or this is the icon for vectors, and this is the icon for the plane. So I will briefly explain these hexagons and the icons. What are the building blocks of Grasshopper? I will just explain to you by an example. So I will go here and to the perspective place. Okay, I draw some points. Okay, here we have some points, and we want to import them into Grasshopper so we can work on them or have different things. So I just go for the params, and here we go. These two places, the geometry and the primitive, is the place that you can choose what you want. For example, you want to import a point or a vector or anything geometrical, you can go here. And if you have numbers or maybe just not geometrical data, you can move into here. So the first thing I want to do is import these points and interpolate them. So I give a curve, get a curve from them. Okay, I click here and go for the set multiple points. It goes to the Rhino, so we can just click on the points or just drag a window. It would choose it by the steps that we draw the points. So I just right click, and here we go. This is the import of the points. Okay, so what will happen next? I just want to interpolate these points. If I put the mouse on the points, you can see that I have 8 reference points. That means that the points are in Rhino. So if I just save the Grasshopper, I won't get it next time, except that I have these points right in the place. Okay, so I go for the curve thing, you know, and we want to interpolate. So for the spline, you can draw curves and things by it, but the most simple thing is interpolate, that you just connect the dots together. So I put it here. You can see that it needs some vertices, so some points I give this output to the input, and you'll see the curve emerging out. So I just move this. So it's a 3D curve, that updates just as I update my points. Okay, here we go. We have 3 inputs here, but it just ran, you know, the interpolate thing just worked. What you need here is a degree or a curve degree, periodic, is it close or open, and not spacing. Okay, I just dismiss here and go to the next part. We have a curve here. Okay, so the sign when you see this hexagon with the spiral thing in the middle means that it's a curve, and you can see it here, right? You can also put this thing here just to have it in this data. You know, you can what is useful when you use these tools from the geometry or the primitive parts is that when you get the outputs, you can always update them by just giving some data to the inputs. So they are helpful. You will see it later. Okay, what I want to go after the point thing is go for the vector and plane. What it means, vector means just from one point to another point by showing an arrow to go from A to B. So this is a vector, meaning that I want to move from here. I want to do an extrusion. I want to rotate. Okay, I want to rotate around this axis. So anyway, vectors are a good thing to work with, and we have a lot of tools here in the vector thing. You can see you have vector 2 points from one point to another. You give it one point A and a point B and get out the vectors. Okay, what I want to do is to show you what plane means. You know, plane is just one point, or you can see here one point and 2 vectors that show the x-axis and the y-axis and the 0, 0, 0 point. What you can see here, we have the perspective plane, which is actually the top. Okay, so if I just click on the plane, you can see we have a point, have the first axis, and have the second axis. That's what plane means. Anyway, you can use it to draw something. For instance, for example, I give the circle here, it needs a plane. I give it a plane and you can see the circle rises here. Okay, what I want to do is just divide this curve and get some perpendicular frames or planes out of it. So I go to curve, and here's the division part. You can divide the curve. What you want to do is just a contour or divide curve, divide distance, and divide the curve based on the distance or length, or just perpendicular frames, horizontal frames. You can get this just like you go in the C-planes and get it C-plane perpendicular to curve. You know, it's similar. So what it gets, it gets the curve and gives you some planes. Okay, you can see this hexagon icon with the plane in it. So whenever I just update the points, I get the new planes emerging. Okay, What is important in perpendicular frame is how many segments do you want to have. For a default number is 10, you can change it whatever you want. So how does number work in Grasshopper? There are many ways you can give numbers in Grasshopper, but I just go for the most easy type and then introduce the next way. The first one is just you double click on the canvas and type a number. Okay, if you just a positive number, so if you type 2 and just choose the number slider you see here, it gives you a tool that produces 2, but you can change it instantly. Okay, but it's okay, a natural number. So what you want to, if you have a real number, you can just double click and type 2.45, for example. You want 3 decimals, you go for the 6, and okay. What happens, it has a number smaller than 10 will give you from 0 to 10. Okay, that's the natural number and that's the real number. So what if you want more than 10? You just type a number much upper than 10, so just type this. You can see I have 0 to 100. Anyway, if you want to change this maximum and minimum, you can want to hover about. I just double click on the slider. You can also change the integer numbers or the floating numbers, even numbers, odd numbers, I don't know. You just go from 0 to 10. So I just say I want a minimum 6 and a maximum 30. Okay, these things work. Anyway, the range is just showing you that the range from 6 to 30 is 24, and you can change it here, but we just say okay, and you can see that we can change the number easily. So I give this to the number of division, and you can see that I am dividing the curve instantly. Okay. Have a better curve here. You can just turn off what you want, what you don't want to see, just by clicking on the tool, clicking right click and turning the preview off. So this is the thing, you can turn off the preview of the planes or turn on. Okay, here we go. We have planes here. What do we want to do with planes? We can easily just put circles in them, but doesn't really help, so I just show you that we can go to the curve and choose the circle in a plane. That means in plane you can see that these are the plane parts: ellipse in a plane, arc in a plane, rectangular in a plane. So you see it gets a plane to draw the circle, and it draws circles around the curve perpendicular to the curve, and you can change the radius here. Anyway, you can just change all of them once. Here we go, changing them. Or if you want each one having a value, you just have 25 circles, you know, so you need 25 numbers for the circles. So I go for the time you want different numbers for it. You can just right click here and set multiple numbers for the circles, but what I think is not bad, you can just go for the parameters and choose something like the gene pool. Gene pool is good for producing number sliders easily, that you can specify how much you need. So if I go for the I have 25 circles, I just double click here and say I need 25, and say the minimum is just 1 and the maximum is 20. Okay, This will give you real numbers, okay, but if you just want to filter them to integers, you can go to the parameters and go to the primitive. You have integer thing. You can just filter your numbers and get integers out, you know, so that will help you to get integers. I'll go for this, and you can see that I can change each circle I want here. Okay. You can also go for sweep, you know, one array and the section, different section to get a pipe here. Even you have the various pipe in Grasshopper, you can go for a various pipe variable and give it a curve, the place of the circles, the radius, and get it. So I'm just saying that we can put the circles in the planes, so it's not really what I want to do. Okay, I just want to work on the main parts of planes. It's the vectors, that what can we do with them, what are they really useful or not. Okay, so just delete this part and preview this on. And here are the planes. I want to go for a pattern here, so let me just explain it more. I want to use these points in these planes and move them in the X direction. You see the red line, and up and down the X direction. So we have a pattern here moving on the curve, you know, moving on the X direction of the curve. So I just go into the plane tools, vector plane, and we have a deconstruct plane that just deconstructs it. You give the plane to it and it will give you the parts. So we have lots of deconstruct parts, so you can see deconstruct. It has deconstruct point, deconstruct box, deconstruct vector, domain, faces, meshes, B-reps, and the solids, and to plane, to domains, and so on. Okay, what we have here is just the center or the origin point of the planes, the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. Okay, so what does it really help? I will show you the x, y, z here just to see what they really mean. You can go to the vector and the vector display, okay, and give it a point and give it a vector. What we have here is a vector, you know, these iconic things are inside the hexagon means a vector. You can just import vectors here too by just clicking and putting on the set one vector, just saying you need a vector. Anyway, we have vector outputs here. So what vector displays does is it shows a vector around an anchor. So I just give this anchor to A and the vector to the X. So you can see that's the X vector, what we wanted to use, and this is the Y and this is the Z. Okay, I go for the X, and what I do is just move them around the x-axis, you know, with a pattern. So what I want to do is to move this point around the x-axis. So we just double click on the move. You can see it has it here. You have all of them in the transformation tab. You have rotation, orientation, mirror, move, arrays, scaling, and projecting these things in the transformation tab. So I just go what this means, you know, the hexagon with the spiral thing in it means geometry, which means you can move anything. You can move points, you can move vectors, you can move planes. For instance, you can move these planes just up. You see, they have been moved by z-axis. So what I want to do is move this origin points around the x-axis. If I give the x-axis to the vector, the translation vector, you can see that it just moves 1 unit out in the x-axis that you can see here. Show you again. That's the x-axis. Okay. Okay, what about giving some number to the x-axis, just not 1 unit or unitized vector? So I give it a try by multiplying the x, giving numbers positive and negative and going up and down. So I just go to the mathematics part and do the use the operators, you know, addition, division, negative, multiplication. I go and multiply this x thing in a pattern I want. So for example, if I give a number slider here, I go for 225 and multiply this 225, you can see that I am moving this what I want. So remember that you can update the curve whenever you want and check the results. So I'm just choosing to move these points. This is just an offset, you know, it really means an offset. So we are just not trying to make the offset thing work because we have an offset here in the curve and we have offset. But if you just interpolate this curve, you can see we are offsetting the curve in the x direction. So if you want to go for the y direction, you can go for the y and offset the curve in the y direction. Okay. What I want to do is give a pattern to this moving. So I just don't need one number. I go for a series of number. First something like 3 0 3 0. Okay, I just changed this to -10, or just maybe I use these. Okay, 3 0 -3 and 0. So what happens is that I want to move 3 times on the x-axis and 0 times just on the point, and -3 on the opposite side of the x, and 0 just on the point again. So what I will do is put a point, put a number here. It's just like the integer part. You put the numbers and I hold shift so I can give different outputs to one input. Okay, we have 4 numbers going for the multiplication. So what will happen is that we have 25 points, division points, but we have 4 numbers for the multiplication. So if I give this, you can see that the first point goes for 3 multiplied by the x, 0, -3, 0, and the rest is just on the curve. So what happened is that Grasshopper sees that you have 25 numbers here, but you have 4. So it will use the N1 0 for all the other that are not in the list. So I have to repeat this pattern to give it for all the numbers I need. So I just go for a repeat, type repeat, and you can see you can repeat data. In Grasshopper you can go for it in the sets, second, sequence, and repeat data. Okay, you can repeat the data for any length you want, the final pattern. So I just repeat this data, and you can hold the control and disconnect this. Okay, and what is the final length of the final pattern? So I have 25 points here, and I need 25 of these patterns to work, you know, 30 minus 30, 30 minus 30, and so on. So I just I can do two different things. One is just use this 24 here, even it gives us a 24 pattern, and add it up by just right clicking here and going for the expression and typing L plus 1. Okay, so we get 25. This is one of these ways we can do, but if it's a complicated algorithm, you know, you can't go back and see what happened, what's the number slider producing the points, you can always just, let me delete this, you can always get an output from anywhere and see how much data is in it. You just go into the length, and you can see that we have list length, how many data is in a list. So we just click on this, you can see any output to this will show you how much you have. It will show you 25. So if you go here, okay, you can see you have 8. So I just put it here and use the 25 for the repeat pattern. Okay, so we have 25 multiplying data for the x-axis. So I give this here, and you can see that something happened. Anyway, let me make it more points appear, and what I want to do is just interpolate the points to get the pattern. I go to the interpolate part, I just preview all of them off and just show you the curve and the pattern curve. So this is the curve you can see. You can just change it by going from X to Y. It will go from the Y axis or the X axis, or you can just give it a 2 pattern and just add them up. So what I want to do is show you how these patterns can affect what we want to do. Okay, you can see that working with the vectors, you can also add other patterns. Okay, so if you want them to go into 3D, I just show you by simplifying this. I go for this part, okay, and put it up here. This is for the y-axis, so I just type a simple one, something like 8, 0, minus 8, 0, and do it here but with a little shift, 0, minus 8, 0, 8. Okay, and multiplying the x part, you can multiply it by the y part, and so this pattern is for the x and this pattern is for the y. I can add these two patterns to have a 3D pattern happening. So I just go to the math part and just add them up. Okay, here we go, and you can see it's just 3D helix happening around the curve, but you can change it by disturbing the pattern being symmetrical. You can also add a pattern for the Z and make it more complicated, but anyway, I just wanted to work with planes and to understand the points, the planes, and what planes are made out of and how you can use them. And at the end you can just go for a pipe, use a pipe, or just search for pipe and give it a curve and get the pipe. Here you go, and give it a radius, you know, what you want. Right? So this is the pipe we just produced from the curve. We even produced this curve in the grasshopper part, so even if we just move these points, we will get a new curve and a new division, a new pattern, and new results. So you can add this, you know, to 80, get more patterns. And at the end, I want this pipe, this cylindrical thing in the hexagon means a solid or surface, a boundary. So you can click out on the output and bake it, you know, just produce it in Rhino and every layer you want. So I have it here. Let me just drag it. Okay. Here we go. And this is the pattern we just produced along the curve using the X and the Y. Okay, this was just a lesson. I will upload the algorithm here, and you can download the algorithm from the place I've uploaded it in, see what happens and see what's happening in the algorithm. So it's just easy working with Grasshopper. And this is the little explanation of the building blocks of Grasshopper. We have more. We have boxes, twisted boxes, we have meshes, we have fields, we have boolean, we have color and domains. We have lots of things to do with Grasshopper, so it's just a glimpse of what you can do and what it really does. It's a graphical algorithm editor. You see what you just type or what you are programming. So